Blue Williams, Guns for Greatness is the name of the program. In many metropolitan areas across America is gun violence, specifically in the big cities, young black males dying in record numbers. You know, you hear the stories in the news, and we've recently had some incidents here right at home in New York City. But you stepped up and tell us where you're from and why you're doing this program.
My name is Michael Williams. I'm from the Bronx, New York, born and raised in New York City. I'm a manager. My company's called Family Tree Entertainment. I've managed Outkast, CeeLo Green, Nick Cannon, Nas, Case. I've been doing it 20 years. And I just saw the same problem just reoccurring. I'm seeing a lot of our young brothers get caught with guns or committing violence. And I started paying more attention, especially as everyone else paid attention during Sandy Hook and what happened up in Newtown. I realized that the plan was just to make tougher gun laws. No one was thinking about, well, how do we stop the problem before it gets to that?
Right.
So I just thought it made sense to try and attack the problem earlier and try and get to some of these young men, young women out here. Because in New York City, 90% of the violent crimes are committed by minorities aged 16 to 37. So that's our demographic. That's the hip-hop demographic.
Right.
And so I felt like the gun buyback programs that New York NYPD and the DA's office already do weren't quite targeting the right audience. They weren't getting to us about it, even though there was an option. So I decided to try and step up, create Guns for Greatness, and get some guns off the street, but I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to get kids to understand that if they turned in their gun, that I would hook them up with a mentor. And the mentoring component is that you get an opportunity to get on a path to straighten out your life and change the path you may be going down. And so that's sort of different that's what makes Guns for Greatness different from other mentoring.
Right, just handing in your gun and getting $100 or whatever.
Yeah.
You're taking it past, you get the gun off the street and then you deal with whatever issue that kid with the gun might have, or try to at least address it.
Now, stay on the gun buyback program. Where is it going to be? When is it happening? Where is it? Where do people go to be a part of
the
this?
first program, thankfully, NYPD saw that this idea was different. So Commissioner Kelly approved the first program to be this Saturday, March 30th, in Brooklyn at Christian Cultural Center on Flatlands. It's 1220 Flatlands Avenue. Pastor A.R. Bernard opened up his church for us to do it. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can come by, you drop off your gun anonymously, totally anonymous. No one's gonna ask you anything.
What does that mean, anonymous, when you're there, your face is there? That's what people, I think, get scared of, is like, if they turn in their gun, cops are gonna know them, keep a list of them,
take a photo,
have them on video.
There's no cameras inside, so yes, someone could take a picture of you going in, but when you go in, the process inside where you turn in the gun and then you get this money card, which is $200. Then you head out, you go out another door. There's no connection to you and that gun for anyone even on the outside. Technically, like if they're outside,
right,
no one's connecting, and then
there's no
they're
cops
not
inside.
It's the police that are actually taking the gun from you and taking it apart, but they're not holding on to those, so they don't do any traces on these guns afterwards. So even if someone took your picture going in, they're not holding on to it and then going back and running a search on the gun and be like, oh, that gun was used to do. There's none of that. Otherwise, there'd be no credibility in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been doing these gun buybacks for 6-7 years now. It's just the problem is they've been getting people 45, 50, just bringing in old guns. Then, oh, I got a gun I don't use. My wife's scared of it. But the kids that have the guns are the ones we're trying to get in there.
Right.
For young people in the street, what the mentality of why I'm carrying the gun in the first place, I think, is how we need to get to these young people, right? Like, they honestly feel threatened by other young people or other individuals, and the only ways they feel like they can protect themselves is to go get an illegal weapon. So while I'm for the gun buyback program, how do we take that next step? Is that where the mentorship part comes into this?
I think that the excuse that I'm carrying a gun because I'm scared is overvalued. The reality is that how do all these guns go from I'm being scared to being used aggressively in crimes and killing people? Now I'm mad, I'm shooting somebody. So I went from scared to mad that quickly and I shot somebody. I think that the reality is that if you have a gun and it's readily available, then it creates different thoughts based on the situation.
That's why I don't carry a gun. That right there is why I don't carry a gun, because then now I'm not even in there. Once you put a pistol on your hip or in your car or any of that, you've put yourself in the mind frame that is right there for me. So as soon as I get emotional about something, I'm going to go grab that weapon, which is why I don't walk around with bodyguards. I don't want that whole presence around me. I don't want none of that around me. And I don't think people think about it that deep.
They don't, but I think that where the mentoring part comes in, I think that the reality is that when you start looking at kids 16 to 37, you're going to get a lot of kids that either got in trouble when they were younger, may have dropped out of school. 46% of young minorities in the city aren't finishing high school. So now you've dropped out of high school, 46%. So now you're out of high school, you're 19, 20, maybe you got in some trouble for a petty crime. Now you're out there, you don't know what you're doing next. You don't know how to get back in the system, you don't know where to start. So hanging out with a gang or hanging out with someone else seems safe. What I'm saying is, if you have a gun, I'm not saying you can't ever pick up a gun again. I hate to say it like that, but the reality is, if you're just looking for an opportunity, here's an opportunity for you to come in, turn in your gun, get $200 right there. Instant gratification, which we know is what most people are really about. Mm-hmm. Then sign up. You call us. We give you a number. You call. You come in and you sit and we talk about what you want to do. Like, that was my pledge, is that I would find each kid that signs up for mentoring, I'd find him a mentor that's in the field he wants to be in. So now it's not somebody that lives far off in the burbs that you can't relate to. Now it's somebody that's like somebody you're aspiring to be. But to add to it, because I understand this culture, I wanted to add gifts and perks. So 30 days in, if you're communicating with your mentee and you're doing the work, and there's Hot 97 Summer Jam, I want to give you guys, give them tickets to Summer Jam. I want to reward them for the work.
That's easy. Now, you act up at Summer Jam, though. Let me just warn y'all. We don't play out there, my G. We got all types of dogs and state police and all of that. So don't bring all that out near us, because we done had that situation before. Now I'm playing, and I don't want that to happen, but we got tickets. That's the easy part. I like the mentoring thing. I think that's strong. I think the other piece that's strong is obviously, the money. But I do think that gun buyback programs, while it is helping get guns off the street, I still think it's only dealing with the symptoms of our true sickness.
Totally agree.
Right? Which you were talking about dropping out of high school. School's not for everyone, but you do have to participate in things so that you know how to hustle in any atmosphere, right? So finishing school, going to school helps you work through learning what you might want to do. Right? Helps you. Social aspects. Yes. You also meet people that are like-minded.
Yes.
Right? So the same way you meet people around your neighborhood that are like-minded, whether that's playing basketball or hanging out in gangs or making music or staying in school, chess clubs, video games and all that, you do that sort of thing in a social atmosphere in school, you might trip and stumble on a career path.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I do like where this is going, and I'm glad to see that you guys are trying to deal with the sickness that is plaguing our low-income neighborhoods and plaguing, minority men in the city. So that's dope. And it's Guns for Greatness, right?
It's Guns for Greatness. It's at Guns for Greatness on Twitter. We have Guns for Greatness on Facebook. We have a gunsforgreatness.org website. The other component, though, that to me is really important is when you start mentoring. I'm a product of mentoring. I grew up in the PAL up in the Bronx. If I hadn't had somebody at the PAL that helped me, so that it gives you a goal, it gives you someone else to talk to. Yeah. If you stay engaged with that mentoring, then you might tell your friend. You start to get anything. I can't solve the problem with one program, but I know that if I get one gun off the streets in Brooklyn this Saturday, I may have saved 2 lives.
All of us sitting here, somebody reached back and said, hey, I got an opportunity. But with that opportunity came the reality that you still got to put in your work.
And that's what
there are
about.
No handouts out here. You still got to put in your work. You still got to communicate. You still got to be on time. You still got to be accessible. You still have to do that work. And if you're not willing to do that work, yes, you will end up on the block. Yes, you will end up incarcerated. And God forbid, you might end up dead. So you still got to put in that work. And if what you would rather do is sit around on a corner and smoke weed and drink, you know where that leads. That means you just gave up. But for those of you that want to do something a little bit more and want to put in that work, and it just might be in a situation where you need a little help, this might be an opportunity.
And the gangs are making you put in work anyway. The reality is most of the gangs are making you put in work to show that you're down, and that work can put you in jail too. If you do this work, you keep getting things. That's the commitment. That's why I did it as a private sector. I'm going to the labels, I'm going to Morgan Stanley's, I'm going to different companies around the country and getting them to put the money up to pay for the guns and pay for the overtime, but also to allow me to do the things that keep the kids engaged.
And also, while I love hip hop and I love music, everybody ain't gonna be a fucking rapper.
Exactly.
So don't show up with the Guns for Greatness where we trying to do something good talking about you want to be a fucking rapper. Like, if that's your dream, if that's what you want to do, cool.
Yeah, if you want to be a rapper, you got to at least take that first step. You got to come in and talk to somebody.
Yes, and that first step could be you getting an internship with a Mike Kaiser or someone up at a label, and you get in and you learn that you like marketing, you like promotions, you're good with art. Now you're taking a
graphic design,
anything. But there's so many jobs behind the scenes that television and the media has hyped up just the athlete and the rapper. But there's so many of us that make a living behind the scenes.
Yeah,
a great living. And these kids don't always see that, because what they see is the instant gratification of a season on American Idol or a season on The Voice. Instead
or a season on one of these fucking reality shows.
Exactly. As opposed to realizing that, there are people that are putting those shows together that are eating long after that show is cut off because they move on to the next one. Yeah. And I think some of it is just a re-education. At the root of it, Guns for Greatness comes from another idea that I've been speaking to some brothers about, Omar Epps, Jamie Foxx, a bunch of us, which is that how do we take our influence and our credibility and start to try and retrain the culture? We can't, too many people try and attack the ratchet. You can't attack the ratchet. There's always been a certain denominator that people like. That's entertainment. What it is that entertainment can't replace quality of life lessons and issues. And I think that we have to figure out, how do we re-educate, because there's so many young men out there without fathers. How do we teach them the basics without them learning it from a rap video and stuff? So I agree when Ebro says there are bigger problems. And I think that we have to start attacking it. But I think for too long, as hip-hop, we've been on the wrong side of the news cycle. We're always the victim. I don't think that we ever take a step up to get on the positive side of the news cycle and to show more of us that have intelligence and tell stories.
It's like looking at a mountain, and you're like one person. You're looking at a mountain. You're like, I'm not gonna be able to move that mountain.
Yeah.
But you gotta start chipping away somewhere.
Because
I recently just started getting therapy, and I've been saying this on the radio. I believe in like mental health for the hood. Like, I'm trying to take it to the essence, like the early. I didn't grow up with a father, and now I'm realizing in my 30s how much that affected me, and I had no idea. I was like, I don't have a dad. I just deal with it. But now, like, after I like open up some things, I'm like, oh, I didn't know your dad or your family member is supposed to teach you these little things in life that I had to learn a weird outside kind of way.
The mental health is such a huge problem in our society.
And it don't mean you're crazy or you're insane,
No.
you're a psychopath. It's just little things that, like, if you don't get certain lessons, certain bits of knowledge when you're young, that you just fall into a different path.
I mean, and mental health is as simple as recognizing in yourself what your shortcomings might be, right? What your weaknesses are, what the things that upset you, the things that make you happy, the things that, all of those things. That's what mental health is about. It's about it's like looking under the hood.
But there's
of your car.
stigmatism too in our community to going to see a therapist and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with it. I go to a therapist. A lot of people go to therapists that are successful, because with success comes additional responsibilities. And when you get the spotlight on you, it also shines the spotlight on your flaws. Yeah. And if you never address some of those and you think you're too macho to address it, those flaws are usually what we see tearing artists down. That's why we see artists having these public meltdowns, because everyone's too proud to go and sit with a therapist and talk. And sometimes just talking it out is the first step to self-awareness. And that's the next thing that we need to get in. That's the next real issue we need to get into. We need to really get into, you are not soft because you need to go sit and talk with someone.
You've been on the radio since you was young, like 15, 16 years old. And then you might say something on the radio about a flaw you have, and then all these people start calling and be like, yo, I feel the same way. Yeah. Then you realize you're not alone, but people don't have the radio. Right. I don't go to therapy, but my therapy my whole life was the fact that I was trained early in radio that just open up. And, you know, what you learn from opening up is, one, people like you that much more, right? And then two, you realize, wait, whatever my circumstances or whatever I went through, so did a
gang of other people. And then at that point, once you realize that you're not alone, it's kind of like, I'm comfortable in my skin. Like, I know there's other people like me. I know there's other people struggling with what I'm struggling with. You know, now I got this microphone, and if I go on the air and talk about it, people are going to call in and share their stories too, or, you know, give me insight into how they fix their shit or whatever. So that was always my therapy growing up. So
it affects so many of us. So many are dealing with depression. People, if you grew up in the streets and what was normal to us, being in things like shootings and stuff like that, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Like if you sit down with a therapist and you got, your mom's had a drug problem and your pops got killed when you were young and one of your best friends got killed in front of you, you're dealing with PTSD. Yeah, you need to go sit and talk
that
with
shit like soldiers come home from Iraq
stuff.
with. You know what I mean? Or if you live in a neighborhood and every single night, sirens, gunshots, sirens, babies crying, people hollering in the street. Every single night, cops running through your building, people running. Like, all of that is not normal. And I think a lot, like when you bring that up, I've had this conversation with a lot of people, even about their relationships, where their relationships, you know, girls with guys, guys with girls, there's so much drama in their relationship. Arguing, fighting, someone cheating on this one, someone having a baby with this one and that one, where they begin to think that that is a normal relationship.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
But they've never seen
normal. They don't know any better.
And then TV doesn't show normal for us as minorities because TV doesn't necessarily put functioning families like the Cosby on as much.
I just told somebody yesterday, I think I might have tweeted this too, how many black sitcoms exist right now? There is not a black family. No. Now you have T.I. and Tiny reality show. No. You have what's it? The Braxtons.
None. On a major network, none.
But not on network television. There's not a single network.
one. But we know that's a whole different plan. But so since we as hip hop, when you're dealing with PTSD and you're stressed out, yeah, you want to turn on some music that just takes you away from your problems. You want to go into that fantasy world. The problem is that people are escaping so much into the fantasy world that the fantasy world is becoming their reality. Yeah,
and that's why that Molly and all that is popping right now, and that scissor and all that, because everybody want to escape so far that they going all the way.
In the hole. But that's because no one knows, who do you talk to? If you're a kid down in New Orleans or you somewhere in the hood, who do you talk to? You, like I said, you got kicked out of school or you left school at 15. Where do you go to get that? Where do you go to get that therapy? And your idols, the people you look up to and respect, they're bragging about money and stuff they don't have and popping bottles and stuff like that. So all you're doing is aspiring to get like them because they don't seem stressed out because they're also not dealing with their real issues. And I think that as hip hop has grown, we've sort of had to fend for ourselves for a long time. And I think that at this stage, we have to start taking more responsibility for who and what we put out there and stuff like that. And I'm not attacking anyone's lyrics. I just tweeted a little while ago, I think the politician that cuts money in the educational system is way more dangerous than any rapper that with his lyrics. I think that by far, they're closing 50 schools in Chicago. That can't be good for those streets. So I'm not trying to blame hip hop for everything. I think everyone's involved, but I think you start at one place and you start trying to make your impact.
I don't give a fuck what anybody says. You give somebody a little bit of opportunity that's coming from a bad circumstance and a way to put some food on their table and some fresh gear on, they're gonna straighten up. They don't want to lose that opportunity.
That's what Guns for Greatness is. If you're coming in for your mentoring and you're doing your work, and I can get clothing companies I know, or I can get tickets, I can get headphones, I can get to give you stuff for doing the work, you're gonna stay engaged. You're gonna keep doing that work, and eventually, before you know it, like a lot of us, what seemed like hard work and trouble, you actually might start liking. And you're gonna start doing it because you want to do it, not because you had to do it. You're gonna start doing it because, hey, I started to see a light at the end of what was a black tunnel. So you are right, and that's the root of this. That anyone that I've ever met that you give a real opportunity to stand on their own 2 feet, and you can keep them engaged long enough. Like, I think a lot of the mentoring programs, and I want to thank Susan Taylor for her National Cares, or Stephen Powell and Mentoring USA, because they've partnered up with me, because I don't know mentoring. So I had to partner up with people that knew it. I didn't want to try and recreate the wheel. But what I wanted to tell them was, you can't just throw a mentor at a kid who's going to meet with that mentor for 1 week, and then that kid goes back to the hood. That mentor's drowned out. You got to make that kid look forward to going back next week. You got to keep that kid engaged, because that becomes his light to get through some of the darkness. And look, I've
gonna be rough times too.
There's gonna be a lot of rough times.
They relapse and go back to what they used to know.
You can't give up on them.
Yeah.
There you go. His name is Michael Williams. We call him Blue. And Guns for Greatness is the program.
Yes.
And it's going down this Saturday.
This Saturday, Christian Cultural Center, past A.R. Bernard's Church in Brooklyn, 1220 Flatlands Avenue, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
There you have it.
That's the first one. Then we're going to be back in April. We're going to do Queens. Then we're going to the Bronx. Then we're going to Manhattan. Then we're going to Newark. And we're going to go to, the goal is to be national. I want to go to Chicago. I want to go to Detroit. I want to go L.A. I want to take this nationally, because I think once you connect to kids and they start realizing there's another option, I think we can really make some change.